In a shocking move at the United Nations, Pakistan is set to chair the Taliban Sanctions Committee of the UN Security Council in 2025, a move that is likely to raise eyebrows given its controversial record on terrorism. The 1988 Taliban Sanctions Committee is a critical body tasked with enforcing measures like asset freezes, travel bans and arms embargo against individuals and entities linked to the Taliban that threaten Afghanistan's peace, stability and security. Pakistan, currently a non-permanent member of the 15-member Nation Security Council for the 2025-2026 term, will also serve as the vice chair of the UNSC Counter-Terrorism Committee alongside France and Russia. This committee plays a key role in coordinating global counter-terror efforts under Resolution 1373. Notably, Algeria will chair the committee in 2025. According to the new lineup of the UNSC subsidiary bodies, Denmark will lead the 1267 ISIL and Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee, while Russia and Sierra Leone will act as its vice chairs. Meanwhile, Pakistan will also co-chair informal working groups on UNSC sanctions procedures and documentation. The development comes at a time when India has repeatedly called out Pakistan's track record, accusing it of sheltering UN-designated terrorists, including Osama bin Laden, who was found and neutralized in Abbottabad by the US forces in 2011. India has chaired the Counter-Terrorism Committee in 2022 during its last stint in the Council and has consistently urged global powers to act against nations harboring terrorism. While Pakistan's new responsibilities will give it significant influence in shaping the UNSC discussions on Afghanistan and global terrorism, the move is expected to face scrutiny from nations concerned about Islamabad's credibility on counter-terrorism issues. With the key UNSC decisions under watch, the 2025 year could see intensified diplomatic contestation over the global fight against terror. Let's start this conversation with Major General Dhruv Katoch. Does it come as a shock that Pakistan of all countries has been designated as the chair for conducting the proceedings in the 1988 Taliban Sanctions Committee of the United Nations Security Council in wake of the kind of tensions Afghanistan under Taliban rule and Pakistan have been facing in the recent months?
Thank you. Yes, actually, on the face of it, it looks absolutely absurd that Pakistan is chairing the sanctions committee on Afghanistan, and it is also the co-chair. It's also the co-chair for terrorism.
Yes.
Now, when Pakistan has been a state sponsor of terrorism, it has got into such an important position. But unfortunately, I think, when we're looking at the UN Security Council, we've got the 5 permanent members and the 10 elected members. And the elected members, they always come in by rotation. And well, it was Pakistan's turn this time. So it comes in as an elected member. And as per their procedures, as per the UN procedures, they've got their customary internal procedures for a formal, they don't have a formal voting process, They just nominate these subsidiary bodies and everybody gets a chance. Now, Pakistan has been put here. I think this is a fundamental weakness, the way I look at it, a weakness in the United Nations itself and in the Charter of Duties. And I really don't know if anything can be done to rectify such weaknesses. That is the way the system operates, and that is the way it is. But the fact that Pakistan has to, is the co-chair for terrorism, and it's the chair for Afghanistan, for the sanctions committee. There is an element to observe. There is an element of absurdity to it, and I really don't think anything much can be done about it. But just wait for the year to pass, and then Pakistan is out, and then somebody else will come in. Back to you,
Adit Kothari. The irony of it all, that Pakistan has been time and again castigated for harboring terrorism, breeding terrorists in terrorist entities, including Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is a UN-designated terrorist organization, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Jamaat-ud-Dawa. They are all United Nations designated terrorists and terrorist organizations. How much faith can the world have on Pakistan when it chairs a committee on countering terrorism?
So I think when we look at what United Nations Security Council has essentially become, it has become a toothless organization where it's running agendas for predominantly certain countries with vested interests, which is why we are today seeing the mosquito essentially becoming a mantle holder for an anti-malaria campaign. I mean, Pakistan holding a seat for an anti-terrorism body is it's a mindless thing to see, to witness. I mean, what are we going to see next? Hafiz Saeed becoming the United Nations human rights chief at the end of the day? So, this is quite a joke, and the United Nations is essentially making a joke out of themselves at this point, because the world is actually going to question, what United Nations is truly standing for. If you're going to promote the epicenter of global terrorism, asymmetrical warfare, to becoming a caretaker of, terrorist authorities and bodies around the world, which basically manage their day-to-day activities, I don't think there's much to say. But there is this mindlessness when it does come down to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism from a Western perspective. We have been the first casualties of Pakistan-inflicted terrorism for the best part of 50 years, and many of the Western countries, our own allies, would be tiptoeing on it. They would harbor this sense of political correctness when it would come to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. They would not want to sort of address that particular issue. Even today, we seeing United Nations and United States tiptoeing on it. The United States religious bodies are basically promoting LET, members as part of their religious faith advisors. So, it basically questions whether or not the Western allies and the United Nations is seriously concerned about global terrorism as a matter of subject.
Gautam Mukherjee, let's hear it from you with regards to the tensions that have escalated between Pakistan and Taliban Afghanistan, particularly over the purported support of the Taliban government to Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is accused of attacking Pakistani personnel, Pakistani armed forces in the past. How is the equation going to give Pakistan the added advantage and undue leverage when it chairs the committee?
Well, I don't know whether chairing the committee is going to give it any additional leverage. What is happening side by side with it is that they are negotiating with the Taliban. There are talks going on between Pakistan and the Taliban. The Taliban is particularly upset because many people who were refugees in Pakistan for decades have been expelled. So that is a grouse that they are, they have against Pakistan. Support to the Tehreek-e-Taliban is more or less unofficial, and the Taliban has several factions, and some of them are in support and some of them are not. So, that will go on in terms of Pakistan and Taliban relationships. There's also news of the Taliban blocking water into Pakistan by sprucing up their dams.
Yes.
And some reports say this is with India's help. So, it's a sort of a friend-enemy type of relationship that has developed between Pakistan and Afghanistan, even though originally Pakistan had hoped to extend its sphere of influence well into Afghanistan. That has shrunk into something that is more or less an adversarial relationship now. The UN and its committees and its, sanctions have become totally useless in terms of any kind of enforceability it is something of a wonder why the UN still continues at all, because it has become more or less disregarded by everybody
Yeah.
that has anything to do with it.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Sumit Bhai, on one hand, we see Asim Munir and Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist pictures plastered all across Lahore and Peshawar. We see the Pakistan Punjab speaker and MLAs sharing the stage with Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hafiz Saeed's son, holding those speeches and talking about spreading terrorism in Kashmir and raking up Kashmir once again. Now here we see Pakistan in the Counter-Terrorism Committee of the UNSC. What precious little is Pakistan going to contribute to it?
Megha ji, thank you very much for having me on your show. You know, when something reaches an epitome of decay and it is really asking for euthanasia, that is where the United Nations stands right now. This organization needs to be slaughtered and dismantled without wasting a speck of time, and you know, it's an unproductive burden on humanity and planet Earth, and that is what it has become. And you know what is happening is a geopolitical farce. It is the slap on humanity, it's the slap on democracies, and it's the slap on people who don't believe in Islamic terror and who really believe in liberty and democracy. Because if a terrorist country like Pakistan, where maximum UN designated terrorists are, found, where their prime minister says we have more than 50,000 terrorists here, where Osama bin Laden is found, where the killers of Daniel Pearl are found, where all over they've been running terrorist camp for the last 50 years, and where the army says Iman Taqwa Jihad Fizibillah, we believe in Allah and will do jihad in the name of Allah. If that Pakistan, who has been recently dismantled by India and we have killed maybe 1,000, 2,000 jihadis to best of my knowledge, now if that Pakistan is given a position, now you are the epitome and you are the guardian of the anti-terror, some function or group or committee, it's Godfather becoming the gatekeeper. That is how I should look at it. It's an international farce. It's a tyranny of the world. I think all the countries who are members of United Nations should hang their heads in shame, because if Pakistan is going to decide this tomorrow, ISI chief will be heading some other funny committee. If the world has come to such a debacle and the Chinese influence is so much of United Nations that you can get anything moved out. Now recently, Pakistan and Taliban and Chinese had a meeting. Afghanistan joined the CPEC. Can't they see a vested interest here? Can't they see a direct economic vested interest here? Can't they see that China wants CPEC and they wanted to move to Afghanistan? It has happened recently. Can't they see that how the Chinese are playing the games here? Can't they see that Pakistan is bankrupt and anybody can buy Pakistan for $1 billion? That is what the price of Pakistan is. When you have such desperados who run terror as an international policy, who are the epitome and century of terror, and you give them places of honor, I think people like us, people like United States of America and all the countries of Europe and all the sane countries of the world stand, insulted. This is an insult to all the members of the countries. And what will Pakistan do? Pakistan will exactly do nothing. They have a love-hate relationship with Taliban. And within Taliban, there is this Khorasan faction, there is this Kandahar faction, and there are another 51, 52 factions which they are. Today's Taliban is different from last time's Taliban. It's an international consortium of jihad, where there are 52 components of, these jihad cells which make the Taliban what we see today. And Pakistan was the one who made Taliban. Pakistan is the godfather of Taliban. So it is like, this world is becoming a mockery with every passing day. People in United Nations, I think either they think these 8 billion people are stupid or they are too smart. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That is what the world should look at it, because you better come and slap us. मतलब एक जूता निकाल के मारो, rather than giving Pakistan a head of some anti-terror thing and they will now control Taliban and they will have sanctions and all. If this is the level there, if this is the level, Megha ji, I think this organization is done and dusted. India should decide when do we call it a day and when do we say, Bhaiya, apni to ram ram hai, we are not interested, do whatever you want to do and go and move your headquarter to Rawalpindi. At least the cost of running operations will be less. Why are you taking expensive real estate and spending dollars in America? Spare the world, spare the good money of the world. Run next to this failed Marshal Asim Munir's office. That is a favor you will done to the world, because your productivity is zero. So what we say in economics is at least cut the cost. So what should world think today? They should have a cut the cost.
Okay, Janjan Dhruv Katoch, this is to the disadvantage of India, especially at such a sensitive time that we have conducted Operation Sindoor. We have struck the terror outfits and terror harbors located in several regions of Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Kashmir. We have sent out our outreach teams to 33 countries, including in Brussels as well, to send out the message of counter-terrorism action, zero tolerance against terror, and how Pakistan is harboring and breeding and backing and planting terrorists in India. And the United Nations Security Council does the complete opposite. It goes about giving the stature that Pakistan has been dreaming of to build its narrative, to double down on India. It's already using the information warfare. We have Bilawal Bhutto, who has been meeting the United Nations representatives while he is in New York, peddling fake narrative, peddling wrongful narrative against India. How should India be tackling this international information warfare coming not just from Pakistan, United Nations, other international organizations, United States of America? We see all of them, and even Western media, the New York Times, Washington Post, Bloomberg, Reuters, they are somehow hell-bent on painting India and hyphenating it with Pakistan.
Very frankly, when we are looking at the geopolitical situation, people aren't really too much interested in terrorism, very frankly, unless it hits them. So, nothing happened. Nobody was worried about what is happening in India till 9/11 took place and, New York was hit. After that, suddenly they realized. Now some of the foreign capitals, Western capitals started getting hit with terrorism, then they got concerned. Otherwise, today terrorism is simply a tool to be used by a country to further its geopolitical interests. And, countries like the US have been using these people so long as it conformed to their strategic interests. So I think as far as India is concerned, we should realize this. This is the game which people are playing. We have to look after ourselves. As far as the narrative is concerned, yes, I will concede that I think this is one place where we need to work a little bit more in building our narrative. It is still, let me say, it's a work in progress. We haven't got that thing right. Whereas Pakistan's ISI has got it done very well. It is not something which they have done now. For the past 30 to 40 years, I've seen their narrative building. They do it well. When you look at foreign newspapers and channels and think tanks, when you see their funding pattern, then you see, large quantities of funds are coming from dubious sources. These are the sources. So they have cultivated those people. They have cultivated interest inside. They have cultivated reporters. They've cultivated universities. And that is why you see, even in American universities, I was absolutely horrified where one of the Indian students was nearly beaten up because when he was asked, are you pro-Hamas or anti-Hamas? He said, listen, I'm neutral. And they nearly beat him up for that. So, there is an agenda going on. Of course, this Hamas example is different to the Pakistani example. But Pakistan has got their feelers all out. So ultimately, I think the solution for India lies, we have to build a stronger narrative, one. Number two, as far as Op Sindoor is concerned, I think the truth is coming out day by day by day. And
but then how do we strengthen our narrative, keeping in mind that when the President of the United States of America is hell-bent on giving Pakistan the clean sheet, he does not even acknowledge that Pakistan is a terrorist state. How do we go ahead and even try to mold that narrative against Pakistan? And while countries are well aware of what goes on within the rogue state, they are not willing to acknowledge it publicly.
Sure. So, Megha, I think, just taking General Katoch's argument a bit further, our narrative building has been weak for the past 78 years, whereas you see the way Pakistan has basically conducted themselves. 1948 was when the DGISPR was basically set up. Its main objective was military-civil relationships. So basically, the objective was to condition the population to think in a way that the army is completely indispensable. So you have to rely on the army because India is the bogey at the end of the day. And that is the way, Pakistan as a country has been shaped up with an anti-India agenda. And that is how their intelligentsia works. That is how the Pakistani academicians, their journalists sitting abroad have essentially conducted themselves. You look at how Pakistani diplomats and the missions abroad, the way they wine and dine the various, the host nations, is something like a spectacle which we've never been able to do, which is why, our narrative abroad is very weak. In the academic world, in the King's colleges, the Oxford Unions, the Harvards, the MITs of the world, you will always find a Ghulam Nabi Pai or a Muzammil Ayub Thakur being platformed by these academic institutions. Whereas everybody knows that they are well-known terrorists at the end of the day. FBI themselves had, booked Ghulam Nabi Pai as a terrorist. But despite that, various Western institutions are platforming him to opine on Jammu and Kashmir and the security relations. So India basically has to come out of the shadows and take up, the tentacles of media, the tentacles of academia very seriously. That is where we seriously need to invest some monies and minds.
So Sumit wants to make a comment. I'll come back to you, Gautam Mukherjee. Sumit, yes, quickly.
There are two after Operation Sindhu, there are two realities. Either become the Israel, just beat the enemy so much and so much, let the beating of the enemy become the news. That is your war drum should speak louder than your words. There's no need for anything like that. Or if you want to play this narrative thing, then one thing has to be very sure. You need to have an organization, you need to have a ministry, you need to have a body who's especially responsible for that. China has a budget of $3.6 billion for this, which they declare. Pakistanis have a budget of maybe around $1 billion, I don't know how much, but China declares $3.6 billion. So unless and until you have that kind of a body that can handle this, because there's an institution on the other end, which is called the ISPR, and there are full-fledged mechanism working on. And if we think that Mr. Randeep Jaiswal, one-man army, is good enough to defeat that institution and he will be able to whack through them, it's not going to happen. I'm very clear. We need a body at ministry institution who is given a profound budget to do it. Either become Israel, beat them so loud, so hard, and beat them every day. Let beating become the news, and the world media will carry your victory, drums.
So, but is it really going to happen, Gautam Mukherjee, when the deep-seated hate and anti-India narrative is so well established and structured in Western media like Wall Street Journal and Washington Post and New York Times and Guardian and so on and so forth? Can the Indian media be made strong enough a bulwark to fight this offensive and spread a counter? I don't know, we have an Al Jazeera, which we all understand how it operates, why it operates, what allegiances it has. But is there a need for an alternative media to stand up to these false brickbats that are just completely unwarranted, do not have any basis, do not run on any proofs, just opinionated narratives coming in from some Harvard and Oxford professors?
Well, Megha, I think it is a matter of, for a long time, India and Pakistan were not being hyphenated. This has made a comeback for a very good reason. It has nothing to do with the truth. It has nothing to do with whether they are a terrorist nation. Everybody's quite aware of it. But the West, America, including all the media that you mentioned, China has its own axe to grind, of course, but the West, independent of China, that is the West and America, the reason why they are not concerned with terrorism against India is because they wish to prop up Pakistan as a method to either annoy India or suppress it or slow it down. Now, this is part and parcel of geopolitical strategy on the part of the West. And no amount of public relations is going to change it, because they are not going to let Pakistan go down the tubes simply because then India has an open hand, and they don't want that. They want to use India to pull back on China to an extent,
Yeah.
while at the same time making as much cooperation with China as they think is fit. So we are there as part of the toolkit of the West, and this will not change because of good PR or good media
Yes.
or anything of that sort. What we have to understand is that we have to build our own strengths. And as Sumit pointed out, what we have to do and what we have made clear as our policy is if they do any cross-border terrorism, we are going to definitely react in a way they will not enjoy.
Absolutely. On that note, I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.